What's up guys, it's In, It's Gone, and today we'll be looking at some intriguing draft prospects to know going into the 2024 MLB draft. The issue with the MLB draft compared to other sports is really systematic to how MLB's pipeline works in comparisons with other sports. For the big drafts like football, basketball, and even hockey to some extent, draft prospects can expect to immediately be huge contributors to the team. However, for baseball, most of the draft prospects will have to simmer for years in the minor leagues before making a real impact. And this lack of any immediate impact causes the MLB draft to overall get less fanfare than it ultimately should have, as it is one of the main reasons how a team can achieve sustained success. The lack of interest ultimately becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, as the lack of media coverage among the best draft prospects leads to further obscurity of the draft. As people wonder who these names are, they don't even bother to watch. This video will go in-depth on some of the top names, as well as unique players that should equip you with ample knowledge towards the upcoming draft in July. But before we get onto this video, could you guys please hit the like and subscribe button? Currently, only 3% of people who watch my videos are subscribed, so if y'all do, not only would it help me grow my channel, but it also would encourage me to create more videos like this one for you guys. And without further ado, let's get on to the video. The 2024 MLB draft has a big three, if you will. While outlets argue over who will be the number one overall pick, they almost unanimously say that it will be one of three names: Travis Bazzana, Charlie Condon, and Jac Caglianone. These names will almost always go 1, 2, 3 in any mock draft, and it is heavily assumed that these three college players will go within the top 3 picks in the real draft in July. So, starting with Bazzana, he is who the majority of outlets see as the number one overall pick this year, although it is still not a guarantee between him and Condon. Bazzana's rise to stardom has been unorthodox to say the least. While many of his peers eventually migrate towards cricket as Australia's national sport, thanks to globalization, Bazzana fell in love with and stuck with baseball throughout his life. While the majority of Australian-born ball players sign as international free agents, Bazzana chose to go to Oregon State to become draft eligible, taking a 3-year risk that had the chance of him never even signing with an MLB team if he flames out there, but also gave him the chance to earn more money in the long run if he ended up having success at the collegiate level. Well, it seems like his choice to go to college in America has worked out. He will become the first Australian-born player to be drafted in the first round, much less with a top 3 selection. Bazzana's bat is number one overall pick worthy. He's got power to all fields with a quick, compact swing, and is a dangerous enough runner to be a threat in every facet of hitting. This year, Bazzana has had the most complete season of his career, hitting .407, .568, .911 for a 1.479 OPS in 60 games, also with 28 home runs and 16 stolen bases over that time period. If it weren't for his positional questions, and that he's a below-average defender at second base and likely does not have the arm or range to play shortstop or third base, he would almost be guaranteed the number one overall pick. But his bat still plays well enough for Bazzana to take up a lot of the conversation regarding the first selection in the 2024 MLB draft. Next up, Charlie Condon has been challenging Bazzana for the number one overall pick really since the beginning of this collegiate baseball season. He has a frame at 6'6" that both scouts and fans alike have seen a lot in elite level power hitting prospects recently, like O'Neal Cruz, James Wood, and more further back Aaron Judge. Condon is no different. He hit a record-setting 36 home runs in 59 games this year for Georgia, along with a 1.567 OPS and 57 walks to only 39 strikeouts. Putting it simply, Condon has the raw power tool that is unprecedented, considering the types of players that are usually taken out of the draft. Not only does Condon have light tower power with the ability to hit any pitch in any spot 500 feet, but Condon also has really good play discipline for a guy of his age, and is much more of a complete hitter than what is implied when talking about a power hitting archetype. Like Bazzana, he is a question defensively though. He's not known for his blazing speed by any means, but is an okay runner. He's been tried in the corner outfield positions and in the infield as well, and that positional flexibility does provide him more value as a team moves him around to see where he thrives best. But I see him as either a left fielder or third baseman. Nonetheless, his sheer raw power, combined with uncanny bat-to-ball skills, make Condon's prospect profile pretty unique, and a worthy candidate to go number one overall, with his ability to make an impact on the team similar to 2021 Vladimir Guerrero Jr. The last of the big three is Jac Caglianone, my favorite player from this whole bunch. He has the best chance to be a consistent two-way player for a major league team since Brendan McKay, and the most hype surrounding him since Shohei Ohtani. While his abilities as a complete two-way player aren't as refined as Ohtani's going into the MLB, Caglianone still has an impressive arsenal worthy of a top 3 selection. As a hitter alone, Caglianone is likely still a top 5 pick, and as a pitcher alone, he would likely go in the top 3 rounds. Together, they make up a tantalizing combo, with any team seriously having to consider selecting Caglianone no matter where they are in the draft. If it weren't for Condon, Caglianone's power outlet would easily be considered the best in the draft. Caglianone hit 33 home runs this season, including one to lift Florida over Clemson in the start of the College Baseball World Series. And while Caglianone does not have the advanced hitting capabilities as Condon, chasing more pitches out of the zone and walking less, Caglianone's raw power projects him to be a middle-of-any lineup, an instant power threat, and a strong defensive player at first base, similar to Tristan Casas. As a pitcher, he has a fastball that ramps up to triple digits, although fatigue causes his velocity to fall off dramatically, a cutter in the low 90s, and a slider and changeups in the high 70s to low 80s. This season, Caglianone's stuff was not as effective, pitching to a 5.33 ERA in 15 starts, but a 10.2 strikeouts per 9 showcases that he still has the potential as a middle-of-the-rotation starter, and Caglianone could likely be relied upon as a middle-of-the-order masher who could provide quality spot starts here and there. Those three prospects are widely considered the cream of the crop, and while other prospects have one tool that rivals any of the other top prospects, there are legitimate questions surrounding their game that causes them to fall. No other play represents that model better than Vance Honeycutt, in which one of the main storylines of this year's draft will be to see where Honeycutt goes. Tools alone, he may be the best player in the entire draft. He's got light tower power, elite level speed, and arm strength to be a gold glove candidate in the outfield. However, Honeycutt has struck out an unacceptable 33% of his at-bats this season, drawing serious questions about his ability to hit at a professional level. It will be intriguing to see where Honeycutt will go. If a team develops him properly, cutting down those strikeouts while still keeping his other tools in check, then Honeycutt all of a sudden looks like the best player in the draft, reminiscent of what a prime healthy Byron Buxton can be like. However, if the strikeout issues remain or increase, then Honeycutt likely flames out in the minor leagues, and the teams lose out on a premium selection. Speaking of those power-hitting corner infielders or outfielders, Nick Kurtz is currently the favorite to go number 4 overall after the big three. Like all before him, Kurtz has some elite-level power, capable of hitting 35 to 40 home runs a year over the course of a full season. Kurtz is also a pretty good hitter in his own right, and his ceiling is likely a 250 to 260 hitter with a high 800s to low 900s OPS. However, unlike many of the draft picks ahead of him, while Kurtz may be a tier below them in terms of his sheer hitting potential, Kurtz represents an all-around player as a very good defensive first baseman. His arm can play well for a third baseman, but Kurtz does not have the range there. Thus, it's a luxury at first base, in which many first basemen simply do not have. For me, Kurtz is simply a left-handed Christian Walker, incredibly productive defensively and a valuable contributor offensively as well. A perfect spot for the 4th overall pick in my opinion. However, the ceiling for a 5-tool player at a premium position is just not there with Kurtz, as he is playing first base. Breaking out of that all-or-nothing corner outfielder type archetype, JJ Wetherholt reminds me a lot of Tamar Johnson back in the 2022 draft. And although Johnson was a high school bat and Wetherholt a collegiate one, both are considered the best pure hitters in their respective draft classes. Wetherholt is known to have elite pitch recognition, as shown by his nearly 2-to-1 walk-to-strikeout ratio this season. Wetherholt did miss 24 games with a hamstring injury to begin the season, but he came back, was healthy, and played well to dismiss any concerns regarding a lingering injury. Wetherholt is on the safer side regarding draft prospects this year. His floor will likely always be a 270 to 280 hitter thanks to his bat-to-ball skills, and his plate discipline should keep his on-base percentage relatively high, while also playing average defense and being a gap-to-gap type power hitter. However, his 5'10 frame and lack of any monster home run seasons as a collegiate player likely means that Wetherholt's ceiling is likely around 20 to 25 home runs. Wetherholt will be a solid player who could progress through the minor leagues fast as a middle infielder, whose hitting abilities hopefully generate more power as he refines his approach. I hope you realize at this point, most of the players I've been covering have been collegiate bats. Well, this is the strength of the draft. If your team is in the need of some middle-of-the-order slug at either a corner outfield or infield positions over the long term, then this draft is perfect for you. This draft not only has a high-end talent at these positions, but is littered with potential stars at each of the positions, from Braden Montgomery and his gold glove caliber arm in right field, to the power-hitting third baseman archetypes of LSU's Tommy White and Wake Forest's Cam Smith. This draft has a bevy of slugging bats with varying degrees of on-base abilities and fielding. For the teams in the early to mid-teens, it's simply a matter of organizational preference regarding who is going to be selected where. That being said, there are a couple of high school players and collegiate pitchers worth noting. Starting with the high school bats, the top two you're going to see coming around pick 10 will be Bryce Rainer and Konnor Griffin. Starting with Rainer, he's a very projectable player, standing at 6'3", 195 pounds, with already great bat-to-ball skills. On the mound, he touched 95, so there are some questions whether he'll play shortstop or third base long term, but his above-average raw power in the future, combined with his uncanny contact abilities, will have him run the running for a top 10 selection. Meanwhile, Konnor Griffin is very similar, and although his contact ability still needs some refining against elite level off-speed stuff, scouts argue that Griffin may have the highest ceiling in the entire draft. With a 6'4" frame and well above average to elite speed, Griffin has the potential to be a 30-30 candidate, and a difference maker in center field, very similar to Julio Rodriguez. On the pitching side, you'll mainly hear two names get called around the top 10, those being Hagen Smith and Chase Burns, and rightfully so. Both Smith and Burns have easy paths towards being aces for their respective teams, already dominating at the collegiate level, with a fleshed out pitch mix that needs little to no refinement. Although teams may want to try different grips on what will hopefully be a relatively short stint in the minor leagues for both of them. Starting with Hagen Smith, who posted a 2.04 ERA with 161 strikeouts in 84 innings in his time with the Arkansas this year. He's a lefty who throws with a 3/4 arm slot that throws off hitters, especially with his fastball that sits in the mid to high 90s and touches triple digits. When complemented with a nasty slider to boot and a changeup used against righties, there's no wonder why he averages 17.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. Scouts see him as a Jesus Luzardo type of pitcher based solely on his arsenal, but he definitely has the potential to be one of the best lefties in the game. Next, as for Burns, he posted very similar numbers, with a 2.88 ERA and 191 strikeouts in exactly 100 innings, for a 17.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. Burns' fastball is simply electric, sitting in the high 90s and touching 102, with a nasty slider that gets played off of that to protect the fastball. He also has a really good curveball and developing changeup, both of which are already implemented into his arsenal, so he just needs a little bit more time before they truly become plus pitches. As for Burns, scouts compare him to Dylan Cease, but with a little bit more velocity, and that they both have high velocity stuff with wipeout off-speed stuff that batters must be ready for. Very similar to Vance Honeycutt, on the pitching side there's Brody Brecht, who in 5 to 10 years is either one of the most dominant players in the entire league, either as a starter or reliever, or he flamed out in the minor or major leagues, unable to get his control issues under control. It will be interesting to see how high a team is willing to take Brecht, given his sky-high ceiling but serious need for refinement. Throughout his college career, his stuff was always there. He averaged 14.2 Ks per 9 innings, however, the wildness was also there, with an unsustainable 6.8 walks per 9 innings over that same time period. Some people say that Brecht's fastball is better than Skeens' fastball last year. It touches 101 with heavy sink, and he also has a hard slider in the mid-80s to low 90s with heavy horizontal break. He has been working on a splitter, but his lack of command over it has caused him to primarily be a 2-pitch guy, which will likely not work as a major league starter. Overall, Brecht needs a ton of work, especially in command and a fleshed out pitch mix in order to become a major league starter. However, I think the median outcome for Brecht is a high average reliever or closer. Definitely not the ideal outcome, in that relievers are just less valuable than starters, but still a valuable contributor thanks to his sheer stuff alone. But he has to cut down on those walks to turn into anything. Draft-wise, Jurrangelo Cijntje is likely the lowest player I'll be highlighting in this video, but it feels necessary to highlight such a unique player in this year's draft. One major storyline regarding this draft will be where Cijntje gets drafted and what the team's plans to do with him. The only other switch pitcher before him was Pat Venditti, and he was a relief pitcher that topped in the high 80s to low 90s. Cijntje is a starter who from his right side tops out at 98. From the right side, which many people believe will be his better side long term, he has a sinker that sits in the mid-90s, a hard slider, and changeup to boot. As a lefty, he throws from a lower 3/4 arm slot with a fastball that sits in the low 90s, also with a slider and changeup. Although many scouts want him to stick as a righty given that Cijntje's velocity and movement is better there, I would encourage any major league team to at least initially try Cijntje as a switch pitcher. From always having the advantage in platoon matchups to extra innings as a starter, the value that Cijntje brings to a major league roster could be more valuable than meets the eye. And Cijntje can turn from a fun spectacle that isn't typically seen in Major League Baseball to a valuable asset, given the constraints of only a 26-man roster. Well, those are all the players I'm highlighting in this video. Let me know if I'm missing anybody down below, and I'll try to comment on my breakdown of them. Also, check out my mock draft video if you haven't, in that I most likely, if he's a top prospect, have also highlighted him in that video. And if you have any other ideas for a video idea, let me know in the comments down below, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.